Hello, hello, hello. Welcome again to another episode of the Weighing In Podcast. We are live, and hopefully you guys are going to enjoy this show. I got a special guest today, the man who I've known for a long time, done a lot of interviews with, and he's been around the game for a bit, man. So Damon Martin, thank you from MMA Fighting. Thank you so much for joining me. And I did last week, I did another media with Mike over from my MMA Junkie, and man, it's been great. I love the role playing here, the flipping of the script where I get to interview you guys. You guys let me know your feed on this, and it's not the other way around. I mean, you said you were watching what I did last week, and what'd you think of it?
I loved it, and I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, we go back a long ways. I was trying to think because you sent me a text, and I still had your number in my phone, and we go back a long ways. We're both elder statesmen. Let's say that in this game.
Yes, we are. We sure are. But man, we've got a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it, get started, because we got UFC 323 this weekend. Huge event. The last pay-per-view that we pretty much, hopefully we'll never see a pay-per-view again. And it seems to be going in that direction. And then also too, just kind of putting a cap on leaving ESPN and going into the CBS new Paramount TV network deal. What is your takeaway from what we were able to achieve at ESPN? I say we as if I was in on it. Okay, but what the UFC was able to achieve on ESPN, was it a good stepping platform? And do you think the platform's gotten bigger because we're going to CBS and Paramount?
I mean, I think ESPN is still, kind of seen as the gold standard of sports. So it's hard not to acknowledge that and say how big that was spending the last 7 years over there. I do think going to ESPN Plus for pay-per-view and having that extra layer of, cost to fans is never, any obstacle to keep people from watching events is never a good thing. So I think that kind of hurt a little bit, especially when you take it off regular cable or whatever. But listen, ESPN's a massive platform. Everyone wants that exposure, and the UFC needed that. So I think it's a good thing, but you kind of see where the media market's going now with everything going to streaming. Paramount's kind of taken over the world. I mean, they might buy Warner Brothers now. So, I mean, they are becoming this huge conglomerate, massive company. They got the backing of the president. So, I mean, I think this is all good. And obviously doing with pay-per-view, making it less expensive to be a UFC fan, how is that a bad thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think for every fan, whether it's a casual fan or a hardcore fan, I think that's music to your ears. Because if you think about it, right, I think what we've lacked lately is people that don't watch sports. Those people are not really watching us. And I mean, viewership is, I think, steady. I mean, I don't have the exact numbers on it, but I feel like it's been steady for the last couple of years. ESPN is definitely the gold standard when it comes to sports. But I think when it comes down to getting and gathering new fans, well, everyone watches ESPN that is into sports. Well, how do you get the female off the couch, or the female, leaving her job? How do you get her to watch? How do you get those the new breed, the younger generation to watch? That's the question to be had. And if you can do it off CBS, you can do it off Paramount, and people are watching, whether it's Yellowstone, whether it's Landman, whatever it is, right? The younger generation, the 22s and the 25s and the 28-year-olds, I no longer fit in that category anymore, nowhere near. But how do we get them to become fans? Because ESPN is a very hardcore, fan base. They're all sports fanatics, basically. If you subscribe to ESPN and you're almost every night you come home from work, that's what you're watching. Like for me, I only have cable for ESPN. I actually just have ESPN Plus, and I just watch it from there. But I'm like, I still have cable, but even when I'm on cable, I still watch just ESPN. How do you get the new fans from leaving? How do you get new fans, basically? And I feel like CBS will help with that.
I think to me, it always comes down to accessibility. How easy is it to watch something? Can you pop on your TV on a Saturday night and watch something very easily? And when you add in a paywall, that's always going to cut people out, no matter how you like it. Because, let's just say this White House card coming in 2026, and let's just say it is Conor McGregor's big comeback, and we got John Jones and Alex Pereira, maybe the biggest card ever, right? You're going to get the hardcore fans. You're going to get the vast majority of people who are willing to pay $80 to watch a card. But what about the average person who just knows the name Conor McGregor? And they're like, I want to watch Conor's fight, but I don't want to pay $80, and I don't want to have to go to a bar to watch it. I want to watch it at home with my friends. Mm-hmm. You've added that layer. So you've kind of cut out some of the casual fans who are just like, I'm not going to spend money on this. Like sports, like everyone pays. Whenever they say it's on free TV, it's never free. I mean, you're still paying for cable. You're still paying for YouTube TV or whatever you're watching it on, but you're not adding that extra layer of I got to pay another $80, $50, whatever the cost may be. And I think that accessibility is huge. So like everyone is going to be buzzing about the White House card next year. That's going to be the biggest thing. When it gets closer in June next year, everyone's going to be talking about that. President Trump's going to be promoting it nonstop everywhere he goes. We're talking about, dignitaries from around the world watching a UFC fight. Even if you're not a fan, you're going to want to tune in to watch that just for the spectacle of it. But imagine if you add that extra layer of costing $80. It's still going to be huge. It's still going to be a massive show, but imagine how much bigger it's going to be being on like CBS.
Yep. No, I would agree with you.
Regular television. And I think that's really the key. Like, bringing in like the casual audience or the girl sitting at home on a Saturday night. It's just that accessibility. If you can just flip on your TV and watch it and you're like, oh, Conor McGregor's fighting there. Oh, that White House card I heard so much about. I can just flip on my TV and watch it. That's so much easier when you're not adding in that extra layer of, well, you got to buy ESPN Plus, then you got to pay $80, then you can watch the fight. As soon as you do that, you've lost people right there immediately.
Are you hearing the same thing that I'm hearing? And I had this conversation last week with Mike and a couple other people as well. And I actually said this right when they announced the White House card. I said, don't expect this card to have more than 5 or 6 fights. That's one. Two is everyone kept talking about, let's stack it with 3 or 4, title fights. If you have Conor McGregor, the viewership's not going to get much higher. And whether I add John Jones or whether I add Chimaev or whether I add Islam, it's not going to get much higher. They're going to want to see the return of Conor McGregor. On top of that, who's he going to fight? The fight was already, apparently been staged and set up. It's been for the last 4 years, been the Michael Chandler fight. But how many more viewers are you going to get by adding 2 or 3 more title fights? That's not going to happen. And have you heard that you're also going to have 6 fights, 6, maybe 7 fights, but I think 6 is the number.
I think they're going to end up, but somewhere between 6 and 10. I think they will do a couple prelims on there just to kind of like warm things up, get things going, and then probably a 5-fight main card like they normally do. Unless, like I said, this is probably going to be on CBS. Maybe they do a 4-fight main card, do a 2-hour show as opposed to a 3-hour show to kind of condense the amount of time people are watching watching a show. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like Conor, like it or not, Conor is still the biggest draw in the sport. He has been and remains so, and people are going to be curious to watch him come back after 4 or 5 years away. And it doesn't matter who he's fighting, but obviously Michael Chandler's a good name. So I think you're right. Like, it's not going to get much bigger than that. But I do think hearing Dana constantly talk about how he wants to like make this the biggest card ever, and obviously he's very, very close to President Trump. I don't think they're just going to do Conor and then just like 3 random fights. Like, I think it's going to be big stuff. Whether it's Jones Pereira, I mean, I think that'd be amazing. I don't think it necessarily needs it, but I think it'd be amazing. But I think they're going to fill it with names. We've heard this stuff about Ronda Rousey, and now Gina Carano's training again. I wouldn't put it past them whatsoever to put Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey in the card. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. But I'm saying, like, that's the spectacle I think he's going for. And that's why I said, like, Conor and Chandler, and then I don't know, like, some other big spectacle fight. Mm-hmm. No titles even have to be on the line, because at that point you're just selling with the Conor factor. So I agree, like, it's not going to get much bigger than that, but I am curious to see how big it will get, especially if it airs on CBS. Josh, you were around during the Kimbo Slice days when they had that Kimbo Slice. I was actually at that fight with James Thomson, and Gina Carano was on that card. Huge numbers. And a lot of that was just the spectacle of Kimbo Slice.
Yeah, and the history has shown, though, with CBS. Now, I know there's new ownership and new leadership there, but it's running this situation. But history has shown that if you had 2 title fights, they really only had 3 cards. They only had 3 fights with a swing bout. Yeah. So if you had 2 title fights on it, then you had a swing bout, and then you had one more fight. Only 4 fights with a swing bout. And because I do remember this, because I ended up being a swing bout on one of those fights. And just whether you were in a fight or not, you didn't know until you had to walk. Hey, man, you got to get out there in 5 minutes. That's kind of the situation like CBS. That's what that primetime TV spot does. You're kind of left in limbo a little bit. I think in this situation, they're going to go ahead and give them a little bit of carte blanche. The UFC has been proven to run a good pace of fights throughout a night. I think they can get through them. I don't see them doing any more than 6 fights, just to be honest. I think they'll do 4 on the main card, and they'll probably do 2 prelims, and the fights will all be good. They're going to probably try to push people from Paramount. You have 2 on the Paramount prelims, and then they'll push the other 4 fights or whatever it is onto CBS. And I don't think they need to have a John Jones and an Alex type fight. And John kind of leaked a little bit, I guess. Maybe this is just the way that I interpreted it, was that he just said, well, if it's not the White House, then, it's something else will work out, whatever it is. I did notice, though, Tom, with all the stuff that he's going through, Tom Aspinall, but you've got Cyril Gahn and you've got Alex Pereira doing face-offs. You've got them, kind of hinting that possibly there might be an interim title being thrown in the mix there, and there's something to be had in that situation. With Alex and Gahn doing face-offs, it does leave me out there, because think about it. You've got Islam's not going to fight till after Ramadan. Chimaev's not going to fight till after Ramadan and his surgery. And then you really don't have other. Ilia Topuria is out for the first quarter. And so that seems to be they're going to have an interim title in the process. But those guys are fighting here soon. Where do you go these first 5 months? And you're supposed to be exploding onto the scene, but a lot of your top draws are sitting on the sideline.
Well, and that's why I think with the White House card, you're looking more like spectacle than really titles and things like that. And also to your point about Cyril Gahn and Alex Pereira, let's not forget, no one negotiates harder than Dana White in the UFC. This could be a John Jones tactic to say, hey, John, we'll let you fight Alex Pereira, but you're going to have to lower your asking price because otherwise we're going to put him in there with Gahn. And John has made it. When John comes out and says very clearly, like, I want to be on the White House card, you've just taken away part of your power in that negotiation, because now they have the leverage to say, well, you want to be on this card so bad, how much less are you willing to take to do it? But you're right. Like, I mean, I know we're getting the interim title fight. We're getting Kayla and Amanda in January. We're getting Alex Volkanovski in Australia in February. I know there's rumors out there about Max Holloway fighting Charles Oliveira. I think that's going to happen early next year. I don't think that's going to be held to the White House card. So I think that's a big main event. Max Holloway is a legit star. So I think there's going to be and I think what you're going to have to start watching for in terms of the way they're building these cards is what headlines, because if they headline a card with Volkanovski and Diego Lopez, and they headline a card with Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira, if that comes to fruition, then you're starting to look at who else is out there. And as you mentioned, Hamzat's not going to fight right away. Islam's not going to fight right away. Well, who else is out there? Well, you got Merab fighting this weekend. If he wins, maybe potentially he comes back April, May. You got one of those cards to fill. You got Valentina Shevchenko out there. She's got a couple contenders. You could throw her on one of the cards. And I don't think she's going to be a White House person, just being honest. I don't think she's going to have on one of those cards. You got to look at who's available, and who's going to be out there with things like that. So I think they're going to do it strategically, and I think they're going to build. But remember, no more pay-per-view. Like, they're going to build big cards. They're not going. They didn't sign a $7.7 billion deal to put on crap cards, but they also don't have that pressure of, like, we got to sell pay-per-views. We got to sell $80 to our fans. And so if they don't stack a card like that, and they can do a card like they did last year with Dustin and Max, like there was no title, it was a BMF title, it wasn't a real title, still did great. Why? Because Max and Dustin are stars.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you 100%. I mean, there's a lot. Look, you said, oh, well, Merab's fighting here this week, but he'll fight 3 times before the White House card.
That's true.
He seems to take a really good care of his body. He seems to be healthy. He seems to grind hard. He's always in shape. He's ready to go. He doesn't seem like he has a whole lot of outside distractions. His focus right now is enjoying being champion and trying to get as many fights in as he possibly can. So, and I've actually really, because I took the Dana White approach on him. It took me a while to warm up to him. But I mean, ultimately, I'm pretty warm now. Like, the way he's been interacting with his fans on social media, the way he does all these little skits and spoofs and stuff all across his social media, he developed a fan. I became a fan because he opened up his life a little bit and put it out there and had more fun with it. And it just kind of gets you, gets you to know his personality. He became a lot more likable.
Everyone has to find their own voice and become themselves. I've been a Merab guy for a long time, going back a while. Like, I thought he was the best bantamweight even when Sean O'Malley was champion. I was like, Merab is actually the guy, but Sean's got the belt. Yeah. And they gave Sean that fight with Chito Vera, very poignantly why they gave him that fight with Chito Vera, because we all knew it was coming with Merab. But, it's just like I always talk about, and obviously a guy very well, Khabib Nurmagomedov, when he came in, didn't speak a lick of English, very dominant guy, but just didn't really get over with the fans. And they dealt with injuries and time off, and people were just kind of like dismissing him. He learned how to speak English, and then he started doing, I'm going to smash everybody, send location, smash everybody. People grabbed onto that immediately, and then he went out there and just started absolutely, and then he did the thing with the Dana White, like at UFC 205, when he's beating up Michael Johnson and talking to Dana White. You need to give him my title shot. He's beating up Michael Johnson at the same time. That's how Khabib built his fan base. And then Islam kind of followed suit, being his protege. Hamzat, came in, barely spoke English. I smash everybody. People just loved that demeanor. It took Merab a little while to find his voice, where he kind of got funny, and he did the Merab where he stole Sean O'Malley's coat, jumped on the cage. People started to figure out that Merab is kind of a fun guy, and so he's kind of built his audience. And now he's built an audience based on being this crazy guy who will literally defend a title 4 times in a year, which has never been done before. I mean, assuming he wins this weekend. So yeah, you just got to find your voice and be you. And Merab is just I think he's finally found an audience of people who appreciate what he's doing.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. But that's a good segue into talking about the main event, though. You got Merab this weekend against Peter Yan. This is number 2. They fought the first time. You could kind of say that the first fight wasn't close. Merab pretty much dominated, but there was also some excuses thrown out. And these aren't excuses, like legit, from what I understand. Peter Yan had a hurt hand. And that definitely affects how you perform, whether you can defend takedowns, you can whizzer, you can break the grip on the hands, however it is you defend those takedowns, but also too, just throwing punches. If they're not afraid of your shots being thrown at them, then they can go ahead and just wrestle and close the distance at will. And that seemed to be the case in the first fight. How do you see this second fight going?
You know, the thing is here is like I think Peter Yan is an incredibly talented guy, maybe the best boxer at 135. Great hands, fast, nasty power, very, very good fighter. But you look at his, like when he had that fight with O'Malley that he lost, which a lot of people argue he won, but he had that fight with O'Malley, very, very close fight. And then he obviously had the rematch with Aljamain in there too, where he lost. The rematch to me wasn't controversial. He lost that second fight. He's come back and he's gotten a few wins in a row. He had that fight with Davison Figueiredo, which was great. But here's the thing. I don't know that I've seen that many new wrinkles in Peter Yan's game since fighting Merab. I feel like he's still very much the guy we knew back then, still the guy now. With Merab, I feel like he's added new layers to his game. We saw it in the Corey Sandhagen fight. He's now got more confidence in his hand. When he fought Peter Yan the first time, he wanted no part of the stand-up. He was spamming takedowns left and right. I think he shot for like 90 takedowns, some ridiculous number of takedowns. And I think he only landed like 10, which sounds ridiculous compared to like 90 attempts. But that's what he did to win that fight. He knew he probably wasn't going to stand with Peter Yan, so he just went for takedowns. I think he's going to have more confidence to do other things in this fight. Now, could that backfire? Sure, it could. Peter Yan could catch him and hurt him. But I think Merab has added layers, whereas I don't know that we've really seen that much different from Peter Yan since losing to Merab. So I still like Merab here. I think we're going to see a more dynamic performance, kind of like we saw with Corey Sandhagen, maybe get a knockdown, strike with him a little bit, then go for the takedown. But I'm really high on Merab. I think it's going to take a lot to beat him.
Do you think, I've seen this happen several times, some fighters will get overconfident. They've been champion for a while. They defended the title so many times. They just feel like they're unstoppable. And like you said, he has a tendency as of lately to stand a little bit more. That could potentially get him in a lot of trouble with someone like Peter Yan, who fights really well in the pocket, who's very good at foot sweeps when they get into clinch work. And he's got very good hands. He's got some power. And in these type situations, it's not like as if like Jan's going to have to punch up and swing up and jump and hit Merab in the face. Like a lot of the guys he's had to fight, they're equally pretty much the same height. So he's throwing his punches right down the pipe. He just got to be very cautious and careful of getting caught with the overhand right by Merab. But Merab has to be he has to go back to, I think, the original Merab that beat him the first time. The wrestling, the chain wrestling, the constant pressure, making him fight an uncomfortable fight. Because everything that I've seen from Peter Yan, he has a tendency sometimes to throw punches and then kind of demand the respect. Like, oh, I landed hard shots. Now you're not coming forward. I'll take a step back and get my breath and recover. Merab should not allow him to ever take that step back and recover, because I think that's where his 100% his strength is in dominating a lot of these fighters, is by breaking them and making them take steps backwards. Because if you get to Merab, you're obviously one of the best in the division. And if you're being forced backwards by the champion, you're not winning the fight, especially against him.
I remember talking to Merab's coach, John Wood, before the Corey Sandhagen fight, when Merab kept talking about it's going to be a striking fight. I'm going to knock him out. And I'm like, oh, this sounds like the worst idea in the world against a guy like Corey Sandhagen. And I asked him that question. He's like, we're not reinventing the wheel. He's like, we know what we're good at. We know, but we do have confidence in our hands. And if you go back and watch that Corey Sandhagen fight, when he got that knockdown, it was because he was pressuring forward, threatening a takedown, and then caught Corey off guard with the striking. So I don't think we're going to suddenly see Merab, the Muay Thai fighter, against Peter Yan. I think we talk about I don't think there's a key to beating Merab Dvalishvili. He's a very, very, very good fighter. But I think one of the keys has to be making him move backwards. You cannot allow him to just constantly come forward on you. And because he has this endless gas tank, it seems like he can always come forward on you. So I think that really is the key for Peter Yan. He can't be constantly on his back foot defending. Even if it's in the stand-up, he can't just be reacting to what Merab's doing. And that, to me, is the downfall. If you start watching this fight and Peter Yan is getting comfortable backing up and throwing counter shots, it's probably going to be a long or potentially a short night for him because Merab will eventually get inside, whether he gets inside for a takedown or he gets inside for his punches. He's very, very hard to beat when you're allowing him to press forward.
No, I would agree with you 100%. And like I said, Jan has a tendency sometimes to slow down as the fight carries on. He doesn't have the output he has because he's normally used to be the one controlling and dictating the pace so he can fight at his own pace because he's got good boxing. He's hard to take down. Well, Merab doesn't have to worry about that because he's got a gas tank and he's got great wrestling. Like you said, in their first fight, he landed what, 10 of the 40 takedowns that he attempted, and it doesn't bother him. And a lot of wrestlers, and I was one of them, that when I couldn't get a takedown 1 or 2 times after trying, you're like, shit, man, what do I got to do? This is not the way I had planned this fight to go. And it starts messing with your mind. And I'll give you a classic example is, the Tony Ferguson fight. I came out, shot my first takedown, beautiful takedown, lift, scoop. He turned and rolled away. And I was like, all right, I didn't shoot another takedown until I was in trouble, until I was injured. Like it just got in my mind that, okay, this guy has a defense that I haven't been around, haven't seen. And I didn't shoot the rest of the time. And it was, to my demise because of that. But I think you're saying that this fight's going to be more of the same potential of Merab getting him out of there, actually, if he's putting Jan on his back foot.
I do. And also, I think that the key, like, if you watch the first fight, it wasn't even that Merab was just landing takedowns. As we said, Jan defended very well for the vast majority of that fight. The problem that Jan had in that last fight, he didn't do anything else. He defended takedowns. That's all he did for 25 minutes or whatever it was. He didn't do anything else besides defend takedowns. He forgot he had to actually produce offense. That's the key here. He can't just let Merab spam takedowns and do nothing with it. So if he shuts down a takedown, he needs to circle away from that cage, reset, and make Merab come after him again. Do I think Merab's going to get tired miraculously like he's never done before? Probably not. But you got to make him work and you got to make him think. And the last time, Jan just didn't do anything to make Merab fight differently. And he's got to do that. He's got to take Merab off his game, whether that means not allowing him to press forward, stopping the takedown, circling away, and hitting it from the outside, making Merab chase him. Whatever the case may be, he cannot allow Merab to dictate the pace in this fight, or it's just going to be a bad night for him. And like I said, I have a lot of belief in Merab right now. I just have a hard time seeing anyone outside. The one guy I've always said has the best chance to beat him is Umar. And Umar came close, had 2 really, really good rounds, and then he kind of ran the same problem. So run out of gas, got injured, and he couldn't defend the takedowns. He couldn't defend the constant pressure. He couldn't defend the cardio. That is just a weapon that Merab is going to use against everybody.
Let me ask you this. I mean, because is it too soon to say that he's knocking on the door right now of being the best bantamweight ever? I mean, look, I've got Dominic Cruz there.
He's already there. He's already there.
You think Merab's already there?
100% bantamweight goat.
Oh, really? Give me some reasons why. Because look, let me give you mine on Dom first. Dom's champ, leaves, goes away for a couple of years because of injuries, comes back and wins the title. It's so hard to leave the sport for a year, even 12, 13 months, 15 months, to come back and be good again. This guy became champion again after 3 years of dealing with knee issues. Came back and became champion. I look at that and I go, to me, and to do what he did to certain guys that were the champion at the time, was it TJ Dillashaw? And this, so like those are guys that were looked at like, man, he's got a new style. He fights like Dominic Cruz. He's dominant. He does this, does that. I put Dom slightly ahead of Merab, but I got to be honest, he's only maybe 1 fight behind Dom. That's it. I would say, like, if he beats Peter, I think one more. If he beats Umar again, I think I have to put him there. Just to be honest, I look at him beating Peter for sure, which I shouldn't say that because it's a fight. But if he beats Umar again and Umar gets through a fight with no broken hands and there's no injury in the first round, whatever it is, I could be like, hey, look, you did it, man. You did it. You beat the best guys right now. And the way he did it too, with the Corey fight and however he's able to get it done against Umar, if he does, and how does he get it done against Peter in this situation? I've got one fight maybe, but that's why I have Dom. But give me your reasons on why you have him as the GOAT right now.
Well, I think right now 4 title defenses already is pretty. If he gets this one, it'd be 4 title defenses, which is pretty impressive already. He's got 2 wins over Sean O'Malley, who's now a former champion. Obviously, I think Umar is incredibly good. I think in any other world right now, Umar is probably the bantamweight champion, if I'm being honest. and taking out Corey Sandhagen, super impressive. And then you also got to look what he did before that. Remember, he was on like whatever it was, a ridiculous like 8 or 9 fight win streak before he got to the title. Take out Henry Cejudo, another former champion. Took out Peter Yan, another former champion. Merab's like, I think it gets lost in the title fights because he had to fight so hard to get to the title. But when you look at his resume before becoming champion, it's pretty impressive. I think Dominic Cruz is an all-time great, without a doubt. And I almost hate these debates because you have to kind of tear down one guy to build up the other. My one argument against Dominic, I think him coming back, although I didn't actually score him beating TJ Dillashaw in that fight, but he gave him credit. He did win. My biggest argument against Dominic is he came along at a time when the bantamweight division was still kind of figuring itself out. And in my opinion, some of his biggest wins came against flyweights. He beat Joseph Benavidez. Well, that's a flyweight, legitimately a flyweight. He beat Demetrius Johnson, greatest flyweight ever. Demetrius isn't a bantamweight. Demetrius will tell you he's not a bantamweight. So I'm just saying you're asking me to pick little things, what separates them. Merab has been dominant for whatever it is, 4 years now, undefeated, beating former champions. Now he is champion, defending the title. Dominic beat a lot of guys who were probably not bantamweights. And then when he came back, he had the great win against TJ. Obviously, had some other performances in there, but I almost feel like Dominic's in like a Cain Velasquez situation where he's like the theoretical greatest because like he missed so much time. Like I think Cain Velasquez is the most talented heavyweight fighter ever. Period. Never.
I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with that.
But the poor guy just could not stay from being injured. It killed his career. When you think about all the things that guy could have done, it breaks your heart. But unfortunately, that was it. So I always say, who's the greatest heavyweight of all time? Fedor Emelianenko. Who's the most talented heavyweight of all time? Cain Velasquez. And I think Dominic, unfortunately, kind of falls a little bit in there because he missed like 4 years with injuries. Like we have no idea what he could have been.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about it that way, to be honest. I never thought about it that way. I just looked at him like, hey, man, being away for 3 years, whatever it was, coming back and actually getting your title back. That to me is so impressive because in a 3-year span, the sport has a tendency to pass you by. And so for him to come back and do it, even to be, like you said, you didn't score him winning the fight, but it was still very competitive. And I mean, even though he did win it, but it's like you didn't score it that way. But that's impressive to come back after that amount of time and still be able to keep up with the number one guy, or the champ at the time. And I thought that was that's why I put him in that list. But does it? I know I'm totally joking in this situation because we know the circumstances, but you don't hold it against Merab at all for, he was ducking Aljo for all those years. He never took the fights. I'm poking fun there. I know that they wouldn't fight because they're friends. But I mean, you could say he kind of was ducking Aljo.
I mean, I respect them for having, putting their friendship above the sport. It's so rare because you've seen it multiple times. Guys' friendships fall apart. We saw it with John Jones and Rashad Evans. We saw it with Tyron Woodley and Robbie Lawler. Like Robbie Lawler was ATT through and through, and he left that gym and never went back. And like you can kind of still tell the tensions there where he just, things fell out. Colby and Tyron, Colby and Jorge, these things get nasty, and you hate when you have to like pick teams. I respect Merab and Aljo and to their credit, when Aljo lost, he went right up to featherweight, gave the division to Merab, and said, "Go do your thing," and he's done that thing. So I don't know how hard the UFC ever really pushed to book the fight. Like I know we talk about it, but I don't know that they ever got an offer to say, "Hey, Merab's your opponent, man. Are you going to fight him? Or are you going to turn it down?" Because I think theoretical, would it happen, is different than UFC coming up with a contract for, I don't know, $1 million saying, "Will you fight your friend for the title?" We don't know that ever happened. So I don't want to speculate too much because we don't know. I think there's a world where they came at them with enough money. If they wanted to see it bad enough, they'd be like, well, you know what? We fight each other in the gym. Maybe we'll do it this one time. I don't think that ever happened.
I don't think so either. I think the UFC always had a plan. It was Sean O'Malley. The plan was always Sean O'Malley, and if it wasn't Sean O'Malley, it was Peter Yan. It was never going to be. To me, it was never Aljo. And and then he beats Peter, he beats Yan, and then turns around. It's like, okay, and then just Sean. Let's get Sean in there. Sean's our next guy, and Sean goes out there and stuns the world and beats him. It's like, oh, okay, shit. Well, now what do we do? Well, you just run that one back, and then you have Merab. Then Merab comes in. Okay, let's give Merab because Aljo goes up. So yeah, I think the whole time it was always going to be O'Malley. They didn't look at it as like, hey, let's have these guys fight. One is going to get the other. It's always like, how can we get Sean O'Malley to the top in the title fast?
That's why I was never a fan of them doing that immediate rematch for Sean. I'm like, what are you doing? Because He loses again. This time he gets finished. Now he's in no man's land. As long as Merab's champion, like who's going to be really excited to see that a third time? Like honestly, like
No,
you
there's no
know, so
desire. None.
like I don't know why you don't build, because I think O'Malley could win a lot of these fights. Why aren't you matching him up with Corey Sandhagen? What a fun fight that would be. Do the rematch with Peter Yan. Whatever. Keep him away from Umar. Keep him away from Merab. Let him go out and put 3 or 4 wins together. Then you build the rematch, and it's that much bigger. And you can say, oh, he's gotten much better. He's better at his wrestling. You did it less than a year later. What did we really learn from that? All you did was you stuck him in no man's land, where O'Malley is now fighting Song Yadong, knowing that even if he wins, the only thing he can do is hope and pray Peter Yan beats Merab Saturday night.
Yeah, the UFC has a tendency sometimes to not give us the fights that we want, and maybe there's some ultimate, like some vision that we don't know that they have. But like I've used this example, I don't know how many times, is I literally came from Strikeforce, and all I ever heard when I was in Strikeforce is can't wait to watch Josh Thomson fight Anthony Pettis and Donald Cerrone. Never was I offered those fights. I was offered the Pettis fight when he was a champion. I was supposed to fight him for the UFC title. That fight when he got hurt, in quotations, he got hurt. But that fight was never offered to me again, ever. And neither was the Cerrone fight. Even after I lost to Benson, I was like, hey, can I get the Cerrone fight? They're like, yeah, he's not available, this and that. And then we ended up fighting on the same card later on. So I was like, what do you mean? So yeah, like the UFC is wild for the things that they do. And you're seeing that on display right now for some of the stuff that's going on. But I'm not gonna knock it. You know, there's a lot of things that happen behind the closed doors. Joe Silva and I had this conversation several times. You know, when I was offered the title fight with Pettis, and then Pettis fell out, and I said, give me anybody in the top 10. They were giving me guys that weren't even ranked. They were like in the top 15 or 20 or whatever it was. And I was like, no, I'm not going from a title shot to a 15 guy. Give me someone in the top 10. He showed me a list of all the guys. There was 2 that were available, you know, and RDR was actually one that I was scheduled to fight, and they actually gave that fight to somebody else. They gave him to somebody else. And then Benson Henderson, who was getting married, by the way, who decided to put his wedding, or he decided to put his honeymoon off or something off, either the wedding off or the honeymoon off, so he could fight me. And I thanked him so much for it, because otherwise I would have been out for another probably 3 or 4 months. So the UFC has ways and there's reasons why they do these things. But like I said, there's a lot of people that are injured right now. A lot of people going into the CBS deal that just, we don't know as fans. We don't know as media the real reasons. The UFC does, though. They have correspondence with the managers and the fighters, and they know what's going on. So I don't want to dig on them too much for the cards that they're putting together. I think they're doing the best they can with what they have in front of them right now. Now, sure, we could probably want to put other things together, but I think they're honestly doing the best they can. They want to hit the ground running for CBS and Paramount for sure, but I think there's a lot of things in the way. Ramadan falls February 17th to, March 17th, I believe. And so there's a lot of obstacles they have to jump. There's a lot of fighters that are Muslim that are on the roster. So there's a lot of fighters that will be missing that time frame as well. So it's not just the top fighters. There's a lot of other fighters on the roster also. And you've got him ranked ahead as the GOAT right now at the bantamweight division. But there's another guy right now that is making a good case for him potentially being the GOAT at 125 pounds is Pantoja and Joshua Van. Pantoja looks absolutely fantastic. He has a different, I wouldn't say a different style. It is a different style than DJ did, but he's not as convincing. He's not winning as convincingly. He's had some knockdown, drag out, some very entertaining fights. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. Absolute, just a stud, and comes forward. He's that guy that, like, we look as fighters, we all imagine having fights like him. We just don't want to feel the way he does the next day, because he's had these knockdown, drag outs. Joshua Van, though, young, up and coming star, knocking on the door right now to become the champ. Stylistically, I don't think this is a good matchup for Joshua Van, but he's also young and not to be counted out whatsoever.
I know from talking to Joshua, and his head coach is Daniel Pineda, a former UFC fighter, very exciting guy in his own right. And I talked to him about it as well. And Daniel told me, he's like, one thing you got to realize about Joshua Van is he just doesn't care. Like, he's like, I could tell him, like, you know what? You're going to get submitted in this fight. You're going to get submitted in this fight. And he's like, oh no, I'm not. I'm going to go out and submit him. He's like, that's his kind of attitude. He's just got that, like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm gonna go out and do my thing. That kind of young, dumb, and you know what kind of thing. Sometimes it works for you. Sometimes it just works for you. I think Joshua Van's got a little bit of that going on right now. I do think Pantoja is going to be very, very hard to beat. He's such a good grappler. He actually has pretty good striking, but his ground game is just elite. world-class elite level grappling. And you look what he did to Kai Kara France,
Mhm.
who is a pretty good striker in his own right, and he just absolutely dominated him and took him down and submitted him. So it is a hard road for Joshua Van, but I don't think it's an impossible road because he's not built this up like a lot of guys do. I know Brandon Royval talked about that when he lost to Pantoja in the title fight. He's like, I didn't fight like myself. I don't know what was going on that night. I didn't let my hands go. I wasn't aggressive. I was reacting instead of being proactive. And I just did not have a good night. And it cost me the worst night ever, which is a title fight. I don't think Joshua's going to do that. I think he's going to go in there and attack and try to take Pantoja's head off. Will it work? Odds are probably saying no because Pantoja is just so good and he just feels like he's on another level right now. But I wouldn't count him out, man. I think a lot of people counted him out in that Royval fight, taking on 3 weeks' notice. And he's like, cool story. You took it on short notice, but, it's Brandon Royval. And he went out there and put on a freaking show. So I think Pantoja's got the edge, but I just wouldn't count out Joshua Van.
I'm not counting him out based on the fact that Pantoja is very hittable. I mean, if you take a look at a lot of his fights, he takes a lot of damage. He's a very entertaining fighter. He's very good in the grappling, getting the fights to the ground. He struggles a little bit here and there. And Joshua Van, not being a very tall guy, short in stature, thick, tree trunk legs, kind of for such a small guy. He's got the thicker legs, thicker waist. And I can see him being very difficult to hold down as well as take down. Take a look at when Islam fought Volk. The shorter guys are a little bit harder to hold, to lace the leg, to do any half guard on it, any of those things because they have no legs. Their legs are short. And that's kind of exactly where Joshua Van is. Getting in deep on the single leg, getting to a double. They're shorter in stature. They're easier to drop their hips, dig the underhooks. And he's got that ability and that potential. And he's got great boxing. And he's not afraid to gunsling it. And that's what makes it very interesting to me. I am also in agreement with you. I believe Pantoja's just got too many weapons. He fights at a pace that not a lot of fighters can keep up with. And even when he looks exhausted, like he can't go on any further, he has a tendency to just push even harder. He tries to break his opponents mentally and as well as physically. So he is a fantastic fighter. Do you put him in that? Is he getting close to the DJ GOAT talk? Are we getting there a little bit?
I think number 2 is pretty solidified. It's going to take a lot for him to get to number 1. We're talking about 11 title defenses, and I think this is number 5 for Pantoja. It's still a long road. Now, could he get there? Sure, but the thing is, I think Pantoja's 35, so he's already kind of getting up there in years, and we all know the stats, whatever it is, once you're past 35, the lower weight classes, you don't win a lot of title fights, things like that. So I still put Demetrius number 1, and you got to remember, when Demetrius was champion, how special those title defenses were. Guys couldn't touch him. He had 1 loss, and it was a very, very close fight with Henry Cejudo that a lot of people believe he won. He didn't get engaged in wars. He didn't go out there and have brawls like Pantoja does. He didn't have split decisions. He went out there and beat guys up and submitted them with 2 seconds to go in the 5th round or knocked them out with, whatever. So I think Pantoja's got a clear case for number 2. I think it's going to – that's like Alex Pereira, what Alex Pereira's doing is incredible right now, and what he's done light heavyweight is pretty incredible, but I don't think anyone would say you're anywhere close to John Jones when it comes to the greatest light heavyweight of all time. I think Pantoja is going to have a bit of an uphill battle to really even get in that conversation. Number 2, and that's not bad, by the way. Being number 2 is not bad, but 11 title defenses, total dominance, and I think Demetrius is one of the most talented fighters we've ever seen. I think it would take a lot to surpass him.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's funny because you and I are on a little bit different take in terms, not in terms of the greatest light heavyweight with John Jones and Alex. Is if let's just throw it out there, if Alex Pereira was able to win against Cyril Gahn to win an interim heavyweight title, being the first person to win 3 titles basically in 3 different divisions. And for him to do it in such a short period of time that he's been in the sport, I would eventually probably put him above John Jones.
That's such a
just threw you off.
It did. It's so hard because the body of work for Alex Pereira is so short. No one's done this. Yeah. It's so hard to judge him because he's done everything in 5 years. That just doesn't happen. And I think about John, I was there the night he beat Shogun to become champion, whatever it was, 2013. And here we are in 2025, and he was still the number 1 heavyweight in the world. That's so long to be. Now I know there's breaks and absences and things John did outside the sport, but it's just so hard to take away that level of dominance. Whatever's 18-0 in title fights. That's ridiculous. That is a ridiculous. George St. Pierre, who I think is one of the greatest ever, had 9 title defenses. And I think he was I don't know, 12 or 13-1 in title fights, the Matt Hughes one being the one exception. To go 18 or 19-0 in title fights and fighting, I mean, Rampage Jackson, Shogun Hua, Daniel Cormier. I mean, it's not like John Jones was fighting bums, you know what I mean? It wasn't like so. And also right now, just being honest, the light heavyweight division isn't quite what it once was. Like, if I told you right now, Yuri Prochazka is going to fight John Jones, how much money would you put on John Jones? Because I know I'd put a lot of money on John Jones to win that fight. That's not a knock on Yuri, by the way. I'm just saying, like, John Jones feels like he would be a level above the current crop of light heavyweights, which is why he left the division. He kind of cleared it out and didn't really have anyone left to fight. So I agree, man. That would be a tough argument, becoming a 3-division champion. But even then, Cyril Gane, by the way, that's the guy John Jones wiped out in 2 minutes. So
That's true.
You know?
And Alex knocks him out, and they get that's a great fight. I mean, but anyways, look, Brandon Moreno and Tatsuro Taira. How do you see this fight going? What is your thought on Brandon Moreno? Like, he's obviously not fighting for the title until Pantoja is gone. What do you do with him in this situation? Like, he's just going to keep beating the up and comers. And I looked at the odds on this. Brandon Moreno is the underdog on this thing.
That's surprising. I think Tatsuya Taira is fantastic. I think he's a really, really good fighter. That is surprising, though. He's the favorite over Moreno.
It's not by much. I think it's like plus. It's like a plus 120 and a plus 110 or something like that. I think is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I know Moreno had those 2 losses, but you look at him. But I think both of them were split decisions. He lost to Pantoja and he lost to Royval, and I think both were split decisions. I know he talked about briefly like maybe retiring after that. Comes back, gets a good win against Amir Albazi, and has a good win over Steve Erceg. I like Moreno in this fight. I think he's just really good at scrambling and getting out of bad positions. I mean, he's been in there with Pantoja for Ultimate Fighter and then 2 fights in the UFC, spent whatever it is, like 8 rounds with him in the cage and not been submitted. I like Taira. I think he's a very, very good grappler, but I have a hard time believing he can hold down Brandon Moreno for 15 minutes and actually get a win that way. And I think that's the way he would win this fight. So I think Moreno's going to have to do what Max Holloway did, become undeniable. Just beat everybody that's put in front of you. Beats this guy. Maybe he fights Kyoji Horiguchi, who's back, which is awesome, by the way. Yeah. Win that, and then you just keep winning. And then Pantoja's got no choice but to fight him for I guess would be a 4th time technically based on the Ultimate Fighter fight as well. But I like Moreno. I think he looks good, and I think he's re-energized right now after that little break and kind of getting his mind right and coming back. And I think Taira is awesome. I'm a big Tatsuya Taira fan, but I just think Moreno has more paths to victory in this one.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. Brandon Moreno is just a dog. He'll bite down on the mouthpiece and do whatever he can to get through it. He'll get the fight to the ground. He'll work on submissions from the ground. He'll do ground and pound. Like, he's good on the feet. He'll take a shot, give a shot. He's an extremely well-rounded fighter. When I take a look at him, I take a look at the work that he's done throughout his career. He's fantastic, man. He is so good. He's fought all the best guys. He doesn't avoid anyone. And when he does get in there, he mixes it up. Doesn't matter what it is. He has been fighting a little bit more like patient, but also then what happens, that leads to like a fighting style that he's not used to fighting. And I think that's why some of his losses have come. He's stepped away from like the knockdown dragouts, which is what got him there. And he started trying to fight a more patient fight. And I think fans are like, okay, that's not really you. Why are you fighting this way? And I think it's affected his performances. I really believe that in this fight, he can do whatever he wants in this fight. And I think Taira is fantastic. I think he's good on the ground. I think he's, not too shabby on the feet, but Brandon Moreno is just I think a better fighter all the way around. And he's fought, I think, the higher level of competition throughout his career as well. So I think this is a moment for him to shine. And I agree with you. He just got to keep knocking him down as they keep putting him in front of him. If he keeps doing that, I think he'll end up getting another shot, possibly at Pantoja, or Pantoja goes up with the potential of trying to secure a vacant title. I think Merab, after 1 or 2 more title defenses, after Umar, if he's able to beat Umar, what are we doing? Like, I'm sure he'll probably eventually be like, look, let me challenge myself. Let me get up there. Let me just give it a try, see what happens. So this is another fight that really shocked me when it was announced, was Henry Cejudo and Peyton Talbot. It just threw me off. Like Henry, I'm sure there's other fighters you could have been out there fighting, and I'm sure they probably gave you another. Why this guy? What were your thoughts when you saw this fight was announced?
I was definitely shocked. This definitely feels like one of those old school like wrestling moments where they're like, we're going to give the old guy to the young guy and kind of see, does the old guy have anything left, or is the young guy going to kind of ascend to a star? And we all know that there was a lot of hype around Peyton Talbot. It kind of got knocked down a little bit with that Barcelos fight. He got kind of lost an ugly fight and didn't really look good in that fight. Came back and looked good against Felipe Silva. And I don't know what to expect from Henry Cejudo. We talk about Dominic Cruz, like my reasoning for why I don't put him number one bantamweight that big length of time he was off. It breaks my heart because I wonder what Henry Cejudo could have been had he not retired for 3 years. Because like he was on top of the world, man. He knocked out Dominic Cruz. He was a 2-division champion, beat Demetrius Johnson, controversial or not. I actually thought he won that fight, but it was a very close fight. He goes out, knocks out Dominic Cruz, he's 2-division champion, and then he retires. And he walks away at the peak of his powers. You're like, man, what could he have been? Like, what he was the best at that point. What could he have been? We'll never know. And you come back at 38, it's like, and he hasn't, he had a dog fight with Aljamain. That was a very good fight. He had a decent opening round Merab, and then things kind of went sideways for him there. He didn't look great against Song Yadong. Got to be honest. Like I know the eye pokes were horrible, and that should have been a foul, should have been points deducted, all that kind of stuff. But he didn't look great up to that point. And I know Song Yadong is very good, but he didn't look great up to that point. So I don't know. I do a podcast with Matt Brown, obviously a guy I know you respect very much.
Absolutely.
And Matt said something to me one time. We were doing a show about one of the fighters like announcing their retirement fight. Like I'm going to go out there, and Matt's like, I hate when guys do that. Because he's like, it feels like you already have 1 foot out the door. I don't care what your mentality is. I'm going to leave it all in the cage. You already have 1 foot out the door, and that affects you. And he's like, I hate when guys do that because I always feel like it affects them in the fight. Henry said, this is it. This is probably going to be my last one. What kind of performance are we looking for? Do we really think he's going to go out there and just go balls to the wall, leave everything in the cage? Or is this like a passing of the torch? Henry hands it over to the young guy ascending. That's kind of what it feels like. It kind of feels like Peyton Talbot wins. I don't know if it's going to be like a knockout or anything crazy like that, but it kind of feels like Peyton Talbot's moment to shine.
No, I would agree with you 100%. I mean, the size, I just saw some stats basically saying that Peyton Talbot's got a 6-inch reach advantage. I mean, and I saw a picture of them side by side, and someone it looked like Henry was like up to his nipple. I'm like, this is obviously this looks like it's doctored, but I mean, Henry's not a big guy whatsoever, and Peyton Talbot he's a decent size. And I'm actually very surprised that he makes this weight, to be honest. I mean, he's a big body frame, and he's got power in his hands. Can he stop Henry's takedowns? And one thing that people have, I think, not really seen, or they haven't wrapped their heads around, is that Henry he's a fantastic wrestler, obviously an Olympic gold medalist, but he has a very hard time controlling guys and keeping them on the ground. Guys get back up and he takes them back down. He could wrestle with the best of them across the world, but in MMA wrestling, he has a little bit of that Mike Van Arsdale effect, where Mike Van Arsdale would get you down. He just wasn't able to really control you on the ground. Guys would get back up. He had to take you back down. Guys would get back up. He'd take you back down. And that starts to wear on you and fatigue you a little bit. And Henry, being at the age that he is, trying to take down a big body frame like this for three long rounds is going to be very taxing on him. And so on the feet, it's going to be very difficult because you have to deal with the reach, the size, and the power of Peyton Talbot. And getting the fight to the ground, he's going to have to be able to control him from those positions.
You got to remember also, Henry absolutely is a gold medalist, and at the time he was the youngest American to ever win a gold medal. He skipped college and went right to the international scene, and he was a freestyle wrestler. And I always say the best style of wrestling for MMA is folk style, the college style we have in America that only gets used in America. Why? Because in folk style, you get a guy down, you get control points, you get control time. In freestyle, you take a guy down, you get a little bit of time, then they're standing you back up again. You can try to go for a roll, you can try to go for things like ankles and things like that. But generally speaking, in freestyle, you're not controlling a guy much on the ground. They give you a little bit of time to work, to potentially rack up points or get a pin, and then they're back up on their feet. In folk style, in college wrestling, you're holding guys down. You're able to control them. That's why I've always said, like, that to me is the best style of wrestling for MMA, because you learn to hold guys down. Henry never did that. And also everyone's style of wrestling is different. Not everyone is built. The wrestling style is not built for MMA. Henry Cejudo was so fast and so quick on his feet, and he had he could double leg you quick. But as you said, double legging you in freestyle is not the same as double legging you in folk style, where you got to hold a guy down. He takes him down, boom, he's back up again. Takes him down, boom, he's back up again. That's not really doing it in MMA. You can't do that in MMA. You got to hold the guy down and beat him up. He did it with Sergio Pettis, but like Sergio Pettis is a smaller guy. He's not, I mean, the bantamweights now are huge. I mean, Peyton Talbot's a massive dude. I just tend to agree with you. I think it's going to be hard for him to hold him down. And Yeah, I don't love when guys are like, "Yeah, this is it for me. I'm gonna walk away after this one." It almost feels like it's like a goodbye tour, and it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, you're kind of passing the torch before you even get in there.
Yeah, and the outside of Robbie Lawler, I mean, has any of them ever won their goodbye fight?
Rare. I mean, I'm sure there are others, but yeah, I mean, Robbie had that moment, which was great. But I don't think Robbie really like totally publicized he was quitting. He was done after that. Like he kind of talked about it, but like, yeah, it just seems like. And when Matt brought that point up to me on our podcast, I was like, yeah, you're kind of right. Like it generally doesn't go well when guys are like, "This is it. This is my last fight. I'm walking away after this," and then you go in the fight, and it's like, "Oh man, things do
Yeah.
not end well for you."
That's true. That's true. And then where are we at with Jan Blachowicz? He's fighting Bogdan Guskov. Like, where are we at with him? What is he, 42, 43 years old? I mean, and like you were talking about, the light heavyweight division is not what it used to be. And these guys are lingering around, still having shots. I think he's still ranked in the top 5 or top 6. I think is where he's at right now. I mean, how do you
Right.
see this fight going? Oh, he's 5, so he's ranked 5. He's in the top 5.
I love Jan. Jan is like one of my favorite people in the sport. Incredibly nice guy, fun to talk to. I love him. Every time he says legendary Polish power, I get
Yeah.
excited. I love him. The reality is, though, you're right. He's over 40, and things have not gone great for him. He had that really ugly fight with Carlos Olberg. Wasn't like wasn't he didn't get dominated. It was just an
No.
ugly fight. It wasn't a good fight. Bogdan Guskov feels like he's going to be a guy. He's looked really good lately, and you kind of feel like this is either going to be Jan reestablishes himself by beating a younger, hungry, up and coming light heavyweight, or Bogdan goes out there and annihilates Jan, and we kind of get the new guy to put in the top 5, and now maybe we have an eventual contender for an Alex Pereira or whoever ends up being champion if he leaves the division. So I don't know. I think by the time Saturday night's over, we could be talking about Merab celebrating his 4th title defense. We could talk about Pantoja, his 5th title defense. We could be talking about a new number 1 contender, potentially if Tatsuya Taira wins.
Mhm.
And then we could be talking about 2 former champions retiring. Because I think there is
Yeah.
a world where Cejudo loses and Jan loses, and they both say, peace, had a great career. I'm out of here.
That's very true. Very true. How far down do we have to go in this thing? Look, you've got number 5 and number 4. I mean, look in these fights in terms of where they're laid out. Marvin Vettori is fighting Bruno Ferreira, but it's way down on the card. And the same thing with Edson Barboza, who's fighting Jalen Turner. That could be a great fight. And the reason why I'm bringing up these 2 fights, both these fights have potential to be like fight of the night candidates. Marvin Vettori and Bruno could end up being like a stand-up war, and Edson Barboza and Jalen Turner could end up being like a top level kickboxing fight. But then you got Grattan Dawson opening or closing out the prelims going into the main event for a pay-per-view. Normally you put an action-packed fighter at that last featured fight going into the pay-per-view. Like, hey, look we are going to buy the pay-per-view because this was an exciting fight. Nothing against Grant Dawson. He is a dominant fighter, a good wrestler, great control, but they don't normally do this. This caught me off guard a little bit.
I wouldn't be shocked come Saturday night if the bout orders change, because they do this from time to time where you get a new bout order right before the card comes out. Because I like Grant Dawson. I think Grant Dawson's awesome. I've talked to him a few times. Incredibly good fighter. But you're right. Like generally they don't put the dominant grapplers to lead you into the pay-per-view. I mean, the fight right before that, I think Terrence McKinney, Chris Duncan has chance to be a real banger. Like Terrence McKinney is never a boring fighter. He's a go big or go home kind of guy. I feel like that's the one you put it at the top, because Terrence McKinney has a ton of first round finishes, and when he loses, he generally doesn't lose by like a boring decision. So I think Chris Duncan, Terrence McKinney by Saturday night, we might see that one flip flop. But yeah, I'm like Marvin Vettori. I think Marvin's still good, but Marvin is a decision guy. We all know that. I can't remember the last time Marvin had a finish. But Barboza, Jalen Turner, that's a weird one, because that feels like dynamite just getting ready. Like Barboza is always fun to watch, and Jalen Turner is always, and I don't think we have to worry about the grappling. That was kind of Jalen Turner's thing when he walked away. He couldn't get the grappling thing right. They give him a guy like Edson Barboza, who's a nasty striker. So yeah, that one's the odd one to me. Like, why is that far down on the prelims? That feels like a guaranteed barn burner to me.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. So, well, hey, that's going to wrap up our UFC 323 talk. And, but I also want to talk to you about, like, hey, where do you think when we move into the ESPN era, what do you think about the progress that we've made over the ESPN era? And what do you think about moving forward into CBS and Paramount?
Well, listen, I mean, I was, you probably remember this. I worked at Fox during the
Mhm.
Fox era on ESPN, and I was around that whole thing. And the one thing that I think Fox had over ESPN, ESPN is a bigger network now. I ain't going to deny that in terms of sports. The one thing I think Fox had that they did interlace a little bit that I did enjoy was the crossover appeal. Like when they had you remember that first UFC on Fox event, they had guys from Sons of Anarchy out there, they had stars out there. ESPN is so sports centric and they tend to keep it separate from like ABC and FX and all the
Mhm.
other networks they have. I think the Paramount deal is going to be interesting because the Ellisons who own Paramount now have more money than God. They are like the richest people on earth, and so they don't mind pumping money into this. Clearly, they're trying to build up Paramount Plus, which is their streaming service, which I use Paramount Plus a lot. I'm a
Yeah.
big Taylor Sheridan guy. I watch Mayor of Kingstown. I watch Landman. So I love those shows. So I think I love the Paramount Plus streaming app. I think it's 1,000 times better than the ESPN app. ESPN app is terrible.
Yeah.
It crashes constantly. I can't stand it. And you got to remember, Paramount's reach goes so much more than just Paramount Plus. Like it is CBS, but it's also everything else. I mean, they have MTV. I know they're kind of old legacy networks, but they
Yeah.
have MTV. They're talking about potentially buying Warner Brothers. That could be HBO. Imagine a UFC fight on HBO. Remember years ago, Dana talked about that. Like their goal was to get on HBO because
Yeah.
HBO boxing, like he always wanted to go there. Imagine them doing like some sort of documentary on Connor or John Jones or Alex Pereira, and it's like a Sunday night HBO show. There's a possibility that could happen right now. And the Ellisons, say what you will about them because they ran Skydance before they bought
Mhm.
Paramount. They are movie makers. They are filmmakers. They are storytellers. And I feel like that element kind of got lost a little bit in the ESPN deal. Like we got so focused on the sports aspect, we kind of forgot the story aspect a little bit. And I feel like Paramount are great storytellers. And they're putting money into this, man. They're not spending $7.7 billion to have a
Mhm.
failing product. So I'm excited. Like I'm legit excited to see where this goes. And I think going away from pay-per-view is a huge part of that. I think that's going to be a massive driver to get people interested again on a bigger level in the UFC
Yeah.
because you're not putting that paywall up. I think that paywall just kills a lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to explain to someone the other day, like literally all you need is rabbit ears to watch the fights on CBS.
Yeah.
Like you have, like you don't, you can just tune into your TV and just it comes up, CBS comes up. You just need rabbit. Like you don't need cable, you don't need any of that. Just turn it on. It should be there pretty much. I
I
mean,
didn't
it's
I didn't pull up my numbers. You probably remember this better than I do. I can't remember the exact number, but I was talking about the Kimbo Slice fight back in the day. I want to say it was like 10 million people,
it
something
was
like
a
that.
little under 10. I think it was 9 something, I think.
Think about that. Kimbo Slice, a guy who had his audience built on street fights in like shipyards on YouTube, a very early version of YouTube or whatever YouTube was at that point. And Gina Carano, who is legitimately a star, and obviously she was Ronda before Ronda was here. But that's what you were doing that card around. And it got
Yeah.
10 million viewers. 10 million viewers. Now, I know TV's changed and people don't get the ratings they once got. You don't get like 30 million people tuning into any one show nowadays outside of football. But think about that. Think about putting Conor McGregor or John Jones or one of these big fights on CBS and you get 10 million viewers.
Yeah.
I mean, a pay-per-view today may get 200,000 buys.
Yeah, it's wild. People don't realize how much pay-per-view has dropped off. I mean, and when you start hearing it, like, man, John Jones never hit 1 million pay-per-view buys. Never. Not
Yeah.
even the DC fights. DC's like, no, I did like 880,000 or something like that. He never hit 1 million. And then you take a
Yeah.
look and you're like, Connor did, I think 7 of the 10, right? Or 6 of the 10 or whatever were Connor's. And it just the pay-per-view has always been kind of trending down, more streaming, people, pirating the pay-per-views, all those things. I go back and I know this is just me going through being like a little nostalgia about it is, Strikeforce had this deal. And the whole Nick Diaz, Mayhem Miller thing blew it up. We got away from it all because it was still considered like caveman sports, but we had that deal. We had the Showtime, we had the CBS, we had those deals, and even Bellator had a little bit of a run at it too. It just wasn't working, and so somehow, some way, when it all got split back out, and Skydance came in, now they're willing, their guns ablazing. $7.7 billion is insane to me.
Think about this, Josh. How much the sport is accepted now. Like, it is a mainstream sport. People don't want to say it's a mainstream sport. It is a mainstream sport. When everyone knows at least the name
Mhm.
of certain fight. Like, you go up to anybody and say Conor McGregor, they know who you're talking about. And I think that goes a little deeper now than just like the 2 or 3 major stars. When Conor had that bus attack with Khabib at the time, everyone Dana was going on television saying it's the worst moment in the history of the sport, blah, blah, blah. And I said on that day, go back and find it on Twitter. You can find it on there from years ago. I said, watch. When they booked that fight, they're going to use that as promo material. Dana White says, oh, it's the darkest day in the history of the sport. When they booked that fight, that bus attack was all over the promos. And I said, just watch. Imagine, because I was there that night for the Jake Shields, Mayhem Miller. Actually, I always tell this story. I was in the press room after the fights, and we told Scott Coker, because Scott left. He left to go backstage. He didn't see what happened, and we had to tell him. And he's like, "Oh," and he left the press conference to go find out what happened, and came back. Imagine if that happened now. Now, I'm not saying anyone should be proud of that happening. I'm just saying, imagine if it happened now. That would be the most talked about sporting event outside of like the NFL playoffs. People would be talking about that nonstop, and not in yes, negative, but not in a way they're like, oh, the sport's over. You can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
That highlight would be everywhere, and they would 1,000% immediately start working to book towards Nick Diaz versus Mayhem Miller or Jake Shields versus Mayhem rematch, whatever it is. You're right. In that time, it was terrible. We're just trying to find an audience, and it looked really, really bad. You do that in 2025, that same Nick Diaz brawl breaks out. It's the biggest thing in sports. And it happens on CBS. Yeah, in the moment, oh, it was ugly. It was a terrible moment. Every promo from then on out would involve that brawl, and you know it.
Oh, absolutely. Think about when Khabib jumped the cage and then jumped on Dylan Dennis. Look what just happened with Dylan Dennis that was everywhere. I mean, people were talking about, it's been spread all across, it's been viral all across. And then even the media has attached themselves to Dylan now. Like, hey, do an interview with him. Let's have him on. Let's talk about it all. Whereas before, like, people would shy away from, like, oh, let's not interview Jake Shields. Let's not interview Mayhem Miller. Like, let's avoid them for a little bit. Things have definitely changed. We went from being human cockfighting to now we're these, a lot of these top level 10 fighters or whatever, they're all millionaires, and we talk about fighter pay as like it should grow more than what it actually has. But these guys are making really good money. They're making good money. Now, sure, do they deserve more? I always believe that fighters and athletes deserve more, because I used to be one of them. And I was getting the shit end of the stick in the beginning for sure. And I said this yesterday. I go, I made 2-2, 4-4, and 8-8 my first 3 fights in the UFC. And I was the number 1 guy in the world when I fought Yves Edwards. In the lightweight rankings, I was ranked number 1. I made $8,000. That lets you know how far we've come. These guys are getting entrance contracts for like what, 12-12 or 15-15. I mean, like 15-15 or 12-12, $24,000 back to me back then. I would have thought I was rich. I thought I was rich with $8,000. That's how crazy it was, So I was at the club popping bottles, like I was the man.
I mean, you should have been able to retire off the 3 fights with Gilbert Melendez. Those fights alone should have paid you enough to like live the rest of your life without ever having to work another day, because those were all epic fights. So yeah, I mean, you're right. And you think about like a guy like Khabib or a guy like John Jones, like they have what I like to call generational money. Like their kids are probably never going to have to work a day in their lives because they made that money. Now, I'm sure some of it comes from sponsorships and other things like that. But you're right. But I think about that. I mean, everyone's underpaid. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Fighters are underpaid. But yes, there are guys now who can actually like have that kind of generational wealth based on just fighting in the UFC.
No, I would agree. I say this though too. Look, if guys in the NFL and the NBA and other sports and guys like Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield can go bankrupt, every MMA fighter can go bankrupt. It's just a matter of how you take care of yourself financially. So just be smart with your money, and that's one of the things. Dave's got some news for us. There was something we were talking about, and I think it's the Katie Taylor and the Ronda Rousey. I want to get your opinion on this whole thing. My perspective on it is that Katie Taylor and Ronda Rousey should not box. I don't want to see that fight. And look, and if they do it, they do it. I'm definitely not one to say like, hey, don't do it. I don't have an interest in seeing it. I would like to see Ronda come back though. But I think more for me, after seeing Gina Carano hit mitts, after seeing Ronda hitting mitts, The Katie Taylor fight to me is not something that you're taking a true like world class boxer and you're potentially putting her in there with Ronda, who does not have boxing. It's mediocre at best, and that's not a dig at her. She's a Olympic bronze medalist. She's got she's a judoka, like different, obviously just different sports. But Gina Carano's been away for a long time. She's getting herself fit again and looks like she's hitting mitts and taking care of her body. And I would love to see more so the Ronda and the Gina fight. And I said this before anybody else. Actually, Big John told it to me. Big John said he was hearing this buzz of Gina and Ronda potentially fighting. And this was over probably 3 months ago. We were talking about this, maybe even longer, 3 or 4 months ago. We were talking about this. And now a lot of people are saying that fight might actually happen. What's your take on Ronda coming back? And why are people digging at her? Why is everyone giving her a hard time about her comeback?
Well, I don't love Ronda coming back for the main reason that she spent the better part of a year promoting a book where she talked about her career ended because of concussions. You don't come back from that. Like, brain damage doesn't just go away. You don't take time off and your brain just gets better. Generally, it gets worse. And she spent the better part of a year talking about how bad it was. She fell down a flight of stairs, and she went and fought Holly Holm, and Holly Holm knocked her out badly. She comes back a year later, gets knocked out badly again by Amanda Nunes. When you spend that much time telling the world that your career was ended by multiple concussions, they're talking about this Katie Taylor fight in Vegas. If the Nevada State Athletic Commission sanctions that fight, you've lost all credibility to ever say you're protecting fighters, ever. Because you should not be able to say publicly, I retired because of multiple concussions. I had such bad concussion symptoms that I couldn't do it anymore. And then you go and fight a freaking one of the greatest women's boxers ever. This isn't her fighting. I don't know. Like, they're going to rematch Betch Kohei in a boxing match. Like, that's not that. It's Katie Taylor. Yeah. She's literally like the number 1 or 2 women's fighter on the planet in boxing. How does that even make it make sense to me? And if you sanction this, you've lost all credibility. And isn't the commission's job to protect fighters? Like, isn't that part of their job? So I'm not on board with this at all. I really hope it doesn't happen. As far as Ronda coming back and doing like a match with Gina Carano, that's about as far as I would go. I don't need to see her in there fighting, Norma Dumont or Kayla Harris. Oh my God, I do not need to see her fighting Kayla Harris. So let's just not even fathom that. Gina Carano, she's 43. She hasn't fought since 2009. Ronda hasn't fought since 2016. The danger is far less in a fight like that. Is it still a little sketchy with her talking about the concussions and everything? Absolutely. But if you're going to force my hand and say, Ronda's coming back, what's the one fight she should take? Gina Carano would make a lot of sense.
Not to mention,
outside that, I don't want to see it.
That's the biggest fight you could possibly make for her anyways. That's the biggest money fight. Like the Katie Taylor fight, sure, you're fighting a legit fighter, but less people want to see you fight a legit fighter after coming off a 9-year layoff. And then especially your last 2 fights, you got knocked out pretty bad. And I'm not trying to bring that up, but I have to bring it up. I have to say, hey, let's not forget where you left off. And then 9 years away, you just talked about how like it's kind of nice to get back in the gym. You're getting yourself back into shape. Like you're getting back into the routine of, falling in love with hitting mitts and fighting again. And Gina Carano being away for, 16, 17 years, something like that, however long. And her as well. Been acting. I bet she hasn't been in the gym, until recently as well. So I would love to see that fight. If there was a fight to make, Gina and Ronda would be the fight to make. I think that would also draw the most eyes, to be honest. You're not going to get a lot of the hardcore boxing fans, but you will get some, but you will get a lot of fans. You will get people that are fans of Ronda. You will get people that are fans of Gina. And I think there's more fans out there in that world than there are for the hardcore female boxing fans.
I mean, we got to be honest. Like, there's a reason why female boxing has never really taken off. Like, it's just never. Like, Layla Ali had the most famous last name in boxing, and people didn't watch her fight.
Very true.
I know Jake Paul loves to tout how many viewers Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor had for the rematch. It's because it was Mike Tyson on the card, and people were tuning in to watch that, and they just happened to watch the women's fight before that. Women's boxing has never been that big. I guarantee you, if they actually book that fight, there's going to be a large amount of people in America who are going to say, who the hell is Katie Taylor?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who is that?
Absolutely.
But
No,
you remember in 2014 when Gina was doing a movie tour and she talked about coming back, and they were in negotiations with Gina to have her fight Ronda. Now at that point, I was on the other side of the fence saying, I don't love this idea for Gina, man. She's been gone already at that point for 5 years. And I'm like, Ronda was, looked like an absolute monster, unstoppable monster. And I'm like, I don't love this for Gina. 2025. It's been 9 years for Ronda. It's been 16 years for Gina. Gina's 43. Ronda's 39, I think, 38, 39. I don't know that it'd be a good fight. I only know it'd be a pretty fight, but I think the danger is far less in a fight like that. But it is also much bigger because Gina, very, very high profile. Ronda, obviously very, very high profile. And I don't think anyone would get seriously injured in that one, but I can't say that if she goes out and boxes Katie Taylor when Ronda Rousey was at best a rudimentary boxer.
Yeah. Not like, I don't see, and also too, I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, like you're gonna call Dana and this, that." This fight will not happen in the UFC. It will not happen in TKO boxing. It will happen through some random promoter that's willing to put the money behind it. They may happen in Saudi Arabia. It may happen somewhere here in the States where it's backed by Saudi money. I'm just speaking off the cuff, but I don't see it happening with the UFC whatsoever attached to it at all. Because I know there was a lot of talk like, "Oh, all you gotta do is just call Dana. Dana's gonna put this on." I don't think that's gonna happen. I think it's going to be away from the promotion. It won't have anything to do with Dana White or the UFC.
You got to remember how close Ronda is with Dana too. Like I think Dana has enough influence with Ronda. Like if she was seriously going to box Katie Taylor, like I think Dana would do his best to try to talk her out of it because it's just a dramatically bad idea. Now the Gina thing, I wouldn't discount the possibility of that being a UFC related thing because I know Dana has said he didn't really enjoy dealing with Gina's managers when they tried to book that fight all those years ago, but if Ronda comes back and does MMA, I think it's probably going to be UFC. If she comes back and does boxing, you're probably right. It's going to be some weird, one-time deal in Saudi Arabian money, whatever. But I truly like the reaction to this fight. There's been such an underwhelming, like, oh God, we do not need to see this. Like no one wants to see this.
All right, man. Well, hey, I'm going to get you out of here on this one, though. I wanted to ask you about the Tom Aspinall situation, the eye poke, obviously the medicals that he released. And I saw like an interview basically talking about how like him and Dana haven't really had a conversation about it. And, and people giving him a hard time about him not wanting to continue to fight in that situation. And I've said this for the longest time. Why do we constantly give the fighter who got fouled? Why are we giving them shit? Why are we dogging on them? Why are they the ones that are catching all the flack for not continuing to fight when they've been compromised?
I think to this day, I think Aljamain Sterling's career changed forever when he had that knockout, the disqualification with Peter Yan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he ever recovered from that. I think he became a villain that day because he didn't continue against Peter Yan, even though it wasn't his fault. To this day, I don't understand it. He didn't commit the foul. He did nothing wrong. Peter Yan need him in there. I just rewatched it recently. I was like, God, he really blasted him. That was a bad illegal knee. I'm like, you shouldn't continue. Mm-hmm. I'll never understand it how the guy who gets fouled is somehow at fault. Bilal Muhammad took it for years with the Leon Edwards thing. Like, oh, you were getting pieced up. You wanted out of there. They did the rematch. What happened? Bilal went out there and beat Leon Edwards. It's ridiculous. I don't understand how it's somehow Tom Aspinall's fight because he got jabbed in the eye and the referee didn't take a point, didn't disqualify Cyril Gahn. Didn't do anything to Cyril Gahn, but it's somehow Tom Aspinall's fight. It sucks to watch a pay-per-view, to watch a big card, spend money, whatever, and you want this main event, it ends that way. It's unfortunate. I hate it too. Yeah. But you can't blame Tom Aspinall because he didn't do anything wrong. I love the like JFK conspiracy theorists who watch it and they're like, oh, he didn't really take a bad eye poke. Josh, I've never fought a day in my life, but I did do jiu-jitsu for years. And I remember years ago, I got a pinky in my eye doing jiu-jitsu. I had to go to the eye doctor. I had to wear a patch for like 2 weeks. I had a scratched cornea or scratched retina. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
That was for like a little pinky just kind of rubbed against my eye and it just hit the wrong place. And I couldn't see for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. People
why are we questioning Tom Aspinall for getting jabbed in the eye and it's somehow his fault?
Yeah, the Aljo situation was different based on the fact that no one denied whether he took the knee. It was the acting that came along with it. With Tom, there was no acting. It was like, literally, I just can't see. He tried to use the nap. He couldn't. The wet towel didn't work. I just can't see, and Aljo gave me a hard time because I said, bro, like it just a little too much acting for me. Like just look, you got a knee in the head. I wouldn't have continued either if I was feeling the effects of that. And just to be honest, in this situation with eye pokes, it could look like it didn't touch at all, and it can still scratch the shit out of your lens. And it's actually the ones that don't actually go into your eyes, the ones that just go across the front. Those are the ones that hurt the most. And
I mean, I try to explain it to people like this. Like when you watch a heel hook, if you don't know what a heel hook is, you watch Walter Walker go out there and heel hook somebody. And you see someone grab it and you tap out immediately. I've heard people like, why are you tapping that? It doesn't look that brutal. I was like, have you ever been put in a heel hook?
yeah.
Have you ever felt your knee getting shredded from a heel hook? Yeah, because most people see heel hook and they think heel. No, it's actually a damaging knee joint. Like you're literally getting your knee ripped apart. It doesn't look like much in the moment because a heel hook just looks like you're twisting the heel, but you don't know what it's actually doing. It's kind of like that. Like you don't know how bad it is. Like you can't say that an eye poke isn't bad just because you didn't literally see the guy's finger go jabbing into his eye, like go in and dig around the eye. Like it hurts, it sucks, and it's a fight. Do you want him to fight? Because I said this right after the fight. If Tom continued with one eye and got head kicked, knocked out 2 minutes later, lost his title, is anyone ever going to say, oh, well, Tom fought through an eye poke? No, we're going to talk, man, Cyril Gane looked great. He head kicked, knocked out Tom Aspinall. He's the new champ, blah, blah, blah. We're never going to remember the eye poke. We're going to remember that he got head kicked, knocked out by Cyril Gane. So it's the dumbest thing ever that we're blaming Tom Aspinall for getting fouled.
And I like to bring this up because the casual fans at home and maybe the media doesn't really cover it. But look, the difference between maintaining your title and getting another fight and getting another fight and making championship money versus being the one trying to get your title back or getting back to the title is night and day. He's going to make millions, okay, defending his title again when he decides to come back. If he would have lost the title that night and getting back to the road to the title, his pay is cut into a third, maybe even less. He's probably only making around 350 to 400, maybe 500 in that mix. As the champion, he's making millions. And so the fact that he didn't continue on, I'm glad he didn't, because if he would have lost, that affects his life for like the rest of his life. $3 to $4 million or $2 million, that's life-changing money moving forward. That'll help get him through. If he doesn't fight again, that's money that's gonna have to get him through until he gets another job, until he figures out how to make money. So this is life-changing money for him to fight. So I'm glad he didn't continue to fight. I think the approach and how he handles things afterwards, just sometimes the best thing to do is just not say anything. There's no you don't need to justify yourself.
He says it doesn't bother him, and I appreciate him saying that. But if it doesn't bother you, you're not releasing doctors' notes and doctors, the actual paperwork. I didn't need to see any of that. I saw the eye poke. I know how bad eye pokes are. I know he got fouled. That's the end of it for me. Now I understand he's taking a huge amount of crap from fans and even John Jones fighters, whatever. If he really didn't care, he wouldn't do that. It's like, I don't care, dude. I got eye poked. It was really bad. When I'm healthy again, I'll fight again. And guess what? If he goes out and knocks out Cyril Gane in 6 months or whatever, we'll move on and forget about what happened before. Don't let that stuff, because like now he's releasing doctor's tests and paperwork, and I'm just like, dude, you got eye poked. It did suck. I'm glad you didn't continue. Let's just get healthy, come back, fight Cyril Gane, knock out Cyril Gane, submit Cyril Gane, whatever, and we'll all move on. He says it doesn't bother him, but you can tell it does.
Absolutely. All right, man. Hey, I want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. I know I gave you a last minute call, but I'm glad you came through for me, and I appreciate you. Thanks for all the knowledge. And how can we catch you? When do you do your show with Matt Brown?
So new podcast drop every Tuesday, The Fighter versus the Writer with Matt Brown. So we've been doing it for a couple of years now. Matt's awesome. We always one of my closest friends, and we always get to do the show. So that's every Tuesday we drop the podcast. We dropped one today, actually. We talked about Justin Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett. We talked about UFC 323. So every week, and Matt's hot takes are some of the best in the sport. So you will not get a better podcast co-host than Matt Brown. So check that out. And then obviously over on MMAfighting.com, we'll be doing a lot of UFC 323 coverage this week. So stay tuned for that.
All right, man. Thanks so much for joining me. And man, we'll catch up another time.
Anytime, man. Appreciate you having me.
Always, man. Talk soon.